Didn't end with the slaying of the 300 at Thermopylae. It began. It didn't end with the slaughter at Sand Creek. It began. It didn't end with the fall of the Alamo. It began. It didn't end at Ford's Theater. It began. It didn't end at Pearl Harbor. It began. It didn't end at the Lorraine Hotel. It began. It didn't end on 9/11. It began. And here and now, you arrogant and ignorant, evil and foolish, traitors and enemies, foreign and domestic, nothing is ended. You have awakened the American giant and filled us with terrible resolve. Your masks won't silence us. Your shutdowns won't stop us. Your riots don't scare us. You're not as disciplined as the British. You're not as organized as the Nazis. You're not as fierce as the Imperial Japanese. You're not as brutal as ISIS. We beat them all. Freedom is never given. It is earned. It is won. It is fought for. It is taken. So take it. LGBTQ officers in the intelligence community who have claimed to have been silenced or purged by the Trump administration are seemingly plotting their return to intelligence roles. According to Ubiquitous founder and intelligence correspondent Sasha Ingber, Ingber wrote in the Substack post that she recently attended a resignation party soiree at the gay karaoke bar in Virginia, which was partly celebrating former CIA analyst Julia Curley. Curley previously was the first ever CIA officer to openly transition and remain serving in the role until she was laid off earlier on in President Donald Trump's second term. PBS News reported the invitation for the party, jokingly said, "Come join the deep state plot against the regime," Ingber wrote in the post. More than a sadness at being silenced or purged, an anger at being reduced, DEI, and not being able to keep using their invaluable expertise to serve a country they sworn to protect, she wrote further. A country they still believe in, a patient but razor-like resoluteness for justice and the job. Ingber also suggested in a video posted to Substack that the people in attendance at the event seemed upset that they had been reduced to an identity that was really only about the appearance of sexual orientation. That's the absoluteness that I picked up from people, a sense for these people who were pressured and purged for participating in diversity, equity, and inclusion, of course, DEI, which is seen as such a crime these days, Ingber said, that they no longer have their work, that they were reduced to an identity that was only about appearance or sexual orientation. Because these are people who have expertise, who are valuable, who have more to offer, and who want to stay in their jobs, Ingber continued. That once this administration is out, those things are going to change and that they will have a shot again. That the resource group, which was provided to support them, and the openness, maybe that can't be built back exactly as it was, but there will be something else. There will be a way for them if they want to come back. And that is why I am sharing this with you. It was an uncanny moment for me to realize that this fight, this DEI battle, if that's what you want to reduce it to, is not over, she added. Curley could not immediately be reached for comment. As I walked out of the North Gate with my small box of belongings, I finally understood the warning, be discreet Curley wrote in part of the essay. The White House had needed me. Trump officials had known I was trans from day one. This hadn't been an issue until it was public. And then nothing else I'd done mattered. Not my service, not my war zone tours, not even which restroom I used. I was the wrong kind of American. The Trump administration has noticeably been cracking down on DEI efforts across the US. Well, my comments. Trump cracked down on DEI because meritocracy was replaced with idiocy via DEI. While the deep state studies refused to admit any airline disasters, personal, off-record anecdotes tell a very different story. But forget aviation. Just look at the movies. Name one DEI, LGBTQ, whatever flick that hasn't flopped. It's not because there aren't good homosexual stories or historical characters or actors. Hollywood and history are full of both. It's because the giant egos of the emotionally immature actors and directors of today subsume story and content for identity and gender. And the resulting films are simply ridiculous. So, CIA told the LGBTQ whatever hire to be discreet. She wasn't. He's fired, disobeyed guidance. Also, every intelligence agency expects their own to be discreet. It sort of goes with the job. Now they're being even less discreet and continuing to disobey guidance by whining about their firing in an article at a homosexual bar while trying to tell me what great intelligence assets they are. All they have done is reinforce why they were fired, why they should not have been hired, and how they mistake gender identity for merit. Their emotional immaturity makes them easy targets for hostile foreign services. Oh, and they admit they are deep staters. Dudes, whoever hired you in the first place should be fired as well. A reminder, I'm happy to engage in debate, but watch and listen to the Prather Point on X, Rumble, or YouTube, or on jeffreyprather.com to know exactly what I'm assessing. My dives are deep, over many heads. That's not ego, that's simple truth. I quit AMP when they censored me, and I called out their American Christian Zionism long before most knew what it even meant. If you want to learn, I'll teach. If you want to teach, I'll learn. When I am wrong, I admit it. But if you simply insult, it reveals your insecurity, emotional immaturity, and inability to reason and debate. With Trump, for example, if you stand by him covering up for the worst pedophile in our nation's history, you are simply a cultist worshiping a false messiah. If you threaten, know that my careers in SOCOM, DEA, and DIA have well prepared me. I've taught at the FBI Academy, Fort Huachuca, and the Farm. And my own tactical training firm, warriorschool.com, has trained units by government contract from every military branch, all the intelligence agencies, and most of federal law enforcement agencies as well. Tough talkers aren't. Thus endeth the lecture. Sean Connery, The Untouchables. Welcome, everybody. Great show today. John Michael Cullen had to reschedule. We'll have him back on. I'm really sorry about that, but I've got a lot to cover here. So, SEAL scandal versus Navy PR campaign versus Gold Star Sister Truth. Why Christian demoralization of America feeds Islamification. And I've already just covered why fired CIA LGBTQs prove they should never have been hired in the first place. Also, how not to war. Zelensky sounds like Hegseth, who sounds like Trump, versus Eisenhower, how Eisenhower spoke. So CCT John Chapman is a hero, a posthumous Medal of Honor recipient, and his is the only Medal of Action ever recorded. If you haven't seen it, go to YouTube and watch Alone at Dawn on FLIR, Forward-Looking Infrared Radar. I am proud to have supported Lori Trotman Longfritz's efforts to elevate her brother's ultimate sacrifice and fight against Dev Group's disgraceful, stolen valor efforts against John to elevate their own from the beginning. Lori told me her agent does not advise doing more interviews until Ron Howard's film, yes, you heard that right, Ron Howard's film is out. As always, I respect her wishes, but I will continue to support her here by promoting her Substack. The SEAL community must reform, period, full stop. Now, I've called this out for a long time. I've told how the general public thinks the SEALs are the shite, but inside the community, we've always known they've had lots of problems. I have worked with some great SEALs. I know Jason Redmond. I've worked with SEAL Team 4 quite a bit when I was with the 7 Special Forces Group. But overall, the SEALs have had a lot of problems. I've talked about that before with Lori, also before with Matt Kupler. But I want to go into today into Lori's second Substack. But before I do that, I want to ask you to support the sponsors that keep the Prather Point free. Check out curativebay.com, curativebay.com. That's the molecule your body makes it to kill germs. The shelf life for the skin spray is 2 years. I don't know if you can look at my arms, that they are so much better, when I was sick earlier this year, and that is from Curative Bay. The ingredients are pure sea salt and triple purified water only, no filters of any kind, just pure hypochlorous. Formulation is naturally stabilized hypochlorous acid, HOC, same molecule your body's white cells produce to fight pathogens. It's disinfecting, broad spectrum antimicrobial effectiveness against common bacteria and viruses, including norovirus, and most recently, Ebola. Works against RSV, goes against COVID as well. It's formulated to 80 times significantly more effective than bleach, which is harmful to you at comparable concentrations while remaining non-toxic and even safe for children and pets. It's FDA cleared for wound and burn care. When I'll have the founder on here Thursday, he'll tell you some miraculous stories. So please go ahead and make sure you support curativebay.com. And you can also use Prather10 for 10% off there as well. Also, don't forget about signalrelief.com. Signalrelief.com is the amazing patch. You have seen me wearing mine. And when the adhesive wears out, they give you spare adhesives. So they have thousands of little antennas that modify the pain inside each patch. An array of thousands of microscopic antennas work to quiet the volume of overactive signals, reducing the noise in your nervous system so your body can finally shift out of alarm mode and back into a state of natural ease. No drugs, no wires, no downtime, just your body's own signaling system returning to a better balance. Signalrelief.com. Okay, so jumping in here, I want to get into Lori's stack. And again, that's because I want to support her, even though she's not able to come on right now. So this is part 2 of a guest essay by Lori Longfritz, sister of Air Force Combat Controller Master Sergeant John Chapman, reflects her family's experience in her own research. The CCT skill set turns men into our nation's most lethal warriors. She says some, I'm saying most. And I'm very familiar with AFSOC. I've worked with them quite a bit. Warrior School had a lot of contracts with AFSOC and PJs, which is pretty unique because they're such a small elite set. Combat controllers hold dominion over battle space, stacking aircraft at varying altitudes and calling in airstrikes with surgical precision. They are definitely the most deadly special operators on the battlefield, period. And a lot of people just don't understand that because they integrate with all other tier 1 elements. Sometimes at a moment's notice, they must master those units' skill, arguably making them America's most deadly human assets. So, for example, a special forces team, there might be a Halo team, there might be a rucksack team, but not every special forces guy is Halo qualified. Like I'm not Halo. Another, there's scuba teams. So you're scuba qualified. I'm not scuba qualified. Every CCT is Halo scuba qualified, and so are the PJs. The wars in Iran and Afghanistan didn't just produce heroes, they produced a market for them. The SEALs have rushed to fill that demand, and the trickle of SEAL memoirs has become a flood. Hollywood producers clamored for their stories, and the public lapped it up and begged for more. A second career as podcast hosts, leadership consultants, films consultants, and brand ambassadors became a reality for many chosen ones. The problem is that the SEAL book and podcast industrial complex runs counter to a community that's supposed to operate with surprise and stealth. Have you ever heard of Captain Combat Control or the all-powerful PJ? No, you haven't. Why? Because it's called Quiet Professionals. Quiet Professionals was originally for special forces terms. They're a little less quiet too, but as Lori says here, the SEALs are definitely the loud professionals. And it's really important to say this because I don't have the chops to say this. I'm not a SEAL, but Lori does. She is a Gold Star sister. And inside the community, Gold Star mothers and sisters and fathers are like gold to us. Whatever they ask of us, we will try and deliver. When I used to do a lot of speaking, whenever I was approached by a Gold Star mom, I'd stop what I was out doing and give her my full attention and see what I could do for her. And that included moms whose children had been killed by cops, because in my view, they were also Gold Star as well. Beneath the narcissistic outward face of the SEAL community, the rot goes so much deeper on so many levels. The public-facing SEALs, as some of them like to call themselves, are the symptom of a sickness that has infected the community. Some say it started with Roberts Ridge when SEAL Team 6 learned they could cover up the shame of leaving John behind to fight alone by handing out medals and confiscating the ISR footage. That's what's on YouTube now. Yes, they tried to confiscate it, where it grew from there. But it was a problem long before they're inside the community. This corruption is played out in different ways. Some men edited themselves into a version of the war they could sell, where mistakes that looked like cowardice got rewritten. So now, war stories are always changed. That's not what we're getting here. What we're talking about is the SEALs taking failures and making them into successes for a brand. And the SEAL community has done that, and Big Navy has backed that as well. That's different than embellishing war stories. And it's different than simple individual stolen valor. It's institutional. That's the point here. So others made a name for themselves the way American sniper Chris Kyle did, transforming into a SEAL celebrity by reportedly shooting civilians. If you look at the opening of the Clint Eastwood movie, which is a great movie, that didn't happen. And she says, I understand some people may bristle at what I have to say. Some will call me an angry, grieving sister. Well, she's got every right to be an angry, grieving sister. No more families need to endure the heartache caused by lies and cover-ups to protect the brand. I've lived with that pain for 2 decades, and it has just gotten worse. I've followed her carefully along this, and she just keeps getting kicked in the stomach the way she has been treated. And it is disgraceful. And the SEAL team's behavior, institutional behavior, not just individual, but institutional behavior is disgraceful. And again, I don't have the chops to call this out. I am not a team guy. I did operate on a psychological operations. I was commanded the psychological operations team, airborne team, which attached to special forces and Rangers. So I have been, and I started off as an operator, a SOCOM operator that's at a tier 2 level. Then I was a special forces support officer, intelligence officer for my units. And then I was in a reserve tier 1 special missions unit, intelligence unit. And then I went on to be an analyst. And then I was, again, an operator when I was a DEA special operations snowcap operator and special agent as well. But she says, the operations that I'm about to tell you are not just mine. They're real stories that happen to real people. My hope is to shine a bright light on the malevolence that can no longer hide in plain sight, so it can no longer be covered up. And so there's the mission here. That's what she's trying to accomplish. She's not just bitching. There is a purpose here. And there's a purpose why I am doing this as well. I've talked about it before, but I think she does it a lot more eloquently and with a lot more chops than I could ever do. The seduction of power and money must be so intoxicating for once good men to abandon not only their good brothers, their code, and their coveted trident, but also their morals. I find it painfully sad, and John would no doubt have some choice words for them. No doubt. The SEALs laid out quite clearly how they are expected to behave on the battlefield and off. The SEAL ethos, created in 2005, succeeded their unwritten code, which included leave no man behind, and failure is not an option. So that's real interesting because there's a special forces code, there's a Rangers code, there's an airborne code, there's a soldier code, and you have to learn those. And as you go along, they get more difficult. The SEALs didn't really have a formal code until 2005. That's very telling about the culture inside. But they established a code. The ethos took shape after a group of SEALs tested positive for cocaine during a training exercise in Thailand, a bust that was part of a wave of misconduct that contributed to 33 SEALs getting kicked out of the community over 15 months. That is huge, huge. And that is not an individual problem. That's clearly an institutional problem. More than had been lost in combat in Iraq and Afghanistan. So that's what commanders and leaders should be saying. We've got a serious problem here. Some 50 or so SEALs gathered at San Clemente Island to write the ethos. As one account of the drafting process put it, a worry that came up repeatedly in the sessions was the risk of charismatic narcissists within the ranks who could use the team's strengths towards behaviors that did not align with the nation's objectives. The drafters felt the SEALs needed to be reminded of their values every day, so it was boiled down to a few key points that all SEALs could carry on a laminated card in their wallets. Now, usually you memorize these codes, which I think I've forgotten all of mine. But I'm often concussed and old. But the code is loyalty to country, team, and teammate. Notice the order. Serving with honor and integrity on and off battlefield, ready to lead, ready to follow, never quit, taking responsibility for your actions and the actions of your teammates, excel as warriors through discipline and innovation, train for war, fight to win, defeat our nation's enemies, earn your trident every day. When I read the ethos, this is Lori again, what stood out so glaringly was the SEALs' inability to adhere to their own code. The SEAL ethos says, I do not advertise the nature of my work nor seek recognitions for my actions. The market ethics, many following, says advertise, advertise, advertise some more. Apparently, many of the SEALs didn't get the memo or chose to ignore it. Marcus Luttrell, the author of Lone Survivor, hawks his story about the disastrous 2005 mission in Afghanistan that claimed the lives of 11 SEALs, 8 Army aviators, and rode the wave of fame and fortune that followed. Luttrell made millions with the Navy's blessing. So inside the community, we always knew that this was a failure, and this was a failure to plan. It was a failure to lead. I know Green Beret teams who were in the exact same situations who all came out of it alive. But nobody really wanted to say too much in the old days, but it just kept getting worse. They did not self-correct. So that's why we are saying it now. And nobody has more right to say it than Lori. What really should happen is some SEALs, and very few, but a few have stood up to say this. Mohammed Gulab, the African villager who risked his life and family to save Luttrell, got something different for his trouble. The exposure from Luttrell's book and Hollywood adaptation put a Taliban bounty on his head. Luttrell brought him to the United States. But today, Gulab, who resettled in Texas, calls Luttrell a dishonorable person who did not tell the truth. So his honor, his village code of honor took Luttrell in, and he's calling Luttrell dishonorable. Luttrell has recently come forward on his own podcast to admit the story of how the book came as a lie. Now he claims the Navy made me do it. Okay, it's institutional at the Navy level, even beyond the SEAL community, which is small, into big Navy. But is it really that easy to manipulate a Navy SEAL? I guess money truly does talk. What does that say about Luttrell's trustworthiness when he abandoned the man who saved him? More importantly, what does it say about the Navy and the SEALs that they not only allowed one of their own to profit from a semi-fictional story, but they encouraged it and demanded it. They profited from it too, by way of increased recruitment and more. Luttrell's book came out in 2007. He waited until December 2024 to finally come clean. That is not a stand-up guy. He and Navy SEALs have been lying to the American public for 17 years. And why are they telling the truth now? Because they got caught. So from Littell's fiction, they don't seem to care that 11 of their own men died, so Luttrell and the SEALs could peddle a bunch of half-truths and outright lies. There's lots of lies about that, like there's hundreds of bad guys. There weren't. There were just some Afghans who knew the terrain as well. They didn't plan. It's real obvious, even if you watch the movie where they're climbing, they go, false peak. How about map recon ahead of time? You shouldn't be climbing and you don't know the terrain at all. But again, the truth is SEALs on land are nowhere near as good as they are on water, although they think they are, but they just don't have the Army time on the ground. They just don't, which comes from being in the Rangers or being in the infantry and coming from there. Luttrell wasn't the only one to make millions. Matt Bissonnette made nearly 6.7 millions, claiming he was the one who killed bin Laden before the government clawed almost all of it back. Publishing under the pseudonym Mark Owen, Bissonnette's book No Easy Day prompted a Justice Department civil suit for breaching his non-disclosure agreement and skipping the Pentagon's pre-publication review. So remember what I was saying about the CIA tranny? Be discreet. Same thing applies. You're under clearances, and I have never revealed anything secret, confidential, or top secret ever. In 2016, Bissonnette was ordered to forfeit his proceeds, plus another $1.3 million in government legal fees. He was also investigated for working as a consultant while on active duty at Team 6, including his teammates. Now, that's something I was investigated for because I had my training, my company Warrior School during that time. I had permission for it, by the way. And then they were trying to go after me for being a cult leader as well. But that's because I was exposing them. And more on that, I'm going to tell that story even more succinctly one of these days. Not today. There's too much going on. But regardless, Bissonnette's teammates explained his cash grab to journalist Matthew Cole in his book on SEAL crimes, Code Over Country. You can't eat honor. Now, there are some problems with Matthew Cole as well, just to be fair, to be just about this. But with Bissonnette sidelined by DOJ, Rob O'Neill took stage, telling everyone he was the one who shot bin Laden. Reportedly, O'Neill drunkenly bragged to patrons at Virginia bars that he was the one who did the deed. In 2017, his book, The Operator, describes how bin Laden's head split open after he fired and put a round in the head for insurance. This is the SEAL practice of canoeing, firing a round in the enemy's head. At close range, it splits it open like a canoe. And this is canoeing is considered a war crime under the Geneva Convention. That is certainly true. That's why you don't see proof of death photos of bin Laden. So that's a war crime. There are rules to war. And if you shot the guy in the head, accidentally, but canoe in the head, that is simply against the Geneva Conventions. O'Neill actually said on one of a podcast, dude, we're murderers. Who came up with this shit? John would have shaken his head in disgust over such self-promoting tomfoolery. A World War II slogan warned against such dereliction. Loose lips sink ships. It's a Navy phrase. And these sailors, they're not soldiers, by the way, they're sailors. They would be insulted if you called them sailors. But then they're SEALs, of course, but they're sailors first. Aren't even going along with their own Navy's old code. The real bin Laden shooter hasn't revealed himself. He's content to remain quiet. Conceit is bragging about yourself. If that's great, if you've done something great, others will brag about it for you. So the spate of SEAL books prompted a 2014 letter to the Naval Special Warfare community from the top SEAL, Admiral Brian Losey. I've mentioned this several times. And the top enlisted SEAL, Mike Margarachi. A critical tenet of ethos is, I do not advertise the nature of my work nor seek recognition for my actions. Our ethos is a lifelong commitment and obligation, both in and out of service. Violators of our ethos are neither teammates in good standing nor teammates who represent naval special warfare. Looks good on paper, but that's as far as it went. Needless to say, the written tongue lashing did little to stop the flood of SEAL memoirs. Lone Survivor and No Easy Day showed how much money you can make selling a well-told story, whether it's accurate or not. And of course, Lone Survivor was about a failure, and it was a lie about what happened. on all counts. It has become such an industry that many are saying the SEALs have the best book club in America. Instead of focusing on missions and comrades, the running joke now is the main objective is getting into some shit, any shit, so they can go home and write books about it. And I guess also feel bad about it. Kyle wasn't part of SEAL Team Spix, but he attracted interest as his enemy kills Sword. That's Chris Kyle. A member of SEAL Team 6, Jim Foreman, was sent to observe operations and see if Kyle's unit, dubbed Task Unit Bruiser, had figured out something they could learn from. Cole reports that Foreman told his superiors about SEAL snipers shooting unarmed men, women, and children in Ramadi. And again, this is something I can verify from personal anecdotes inside the community for years. Kyle in particular stood out for his willingness to fire on targets others wouldn't touch, like a boy who was forced to serve as an enemy spotter. Cole reports that Kyle shot the boy in the street, and when the boy's family rushed to help him, he fired at them too. Now, that's kind of iffy. If the kid's acting as a spotter, that's a legitimate military target. So I don't necessarily agree with that one. I don't really know that much detail about this. Lori has certainly researched this much more than I. But on June 4th, 2017, Green Beret Staff Sergeant Logan Melger was murdered in Mali, Africa. He wasn't killed by terrorists or enemy fighters. His murderers were 2 members of SEAL Team 2 and 2 Marine Raiders. His murderers were, all 4 were arrested and charged with murder and other violations. Shortly after the Army's determination of homicide, the Naval Criminal Investigative Service took over the case. NCIS concluded Melger's death was a hazing gone wrong. So Army CID, it's a homicide. NCIS, it's a hazing gone wrong. I don't know what the hazing is. This is not some school. This is not SEER training. 2 special operators told the Daily Beast the reason for Melgar's senseless death. He had discovered that one of his SEAL brothers, Tony Dodolph, was stealing cash from the stacks of money sent to pay and bribe local informants. A military attorney for Dodolph said the allegation was false and not supported by thousands of pages of evidence released. Their stated intent was to make Melgar pass out, then take photos of a male performing sexual acts on him so he'd keep quiet about their illegal activities. That is not hazing, it's sexual assault. It should sound very familiar if you've read Stanley Penny's story in Code Over Country, because they have done this regularly. And this, again, is something that has been known a long time inside the community. It is not individual, it is institutional. A military medical examiner determined that Melgar died from homicide by asphyxiation due to compression of neck, with evidence of ligature marks and petechial hemorrhaging consistent with manual strangulation. After his death, Melgar's throat was then mutilated. The SEALs claimed that they've tried to give him a criciotomy, emergency procedure, a cric. I've actually done that on here, but it was to cover up the damage of the choke, which they were not able to do. The 2 SEALs and 2 Marine Raiders were arrested, each receiving different sentences, and all of them agreed that one of the SEALs, Tony Dodolph, was the ringleader. Their sentences after deals reduced charges. One Marine received a 4-year sentence, rank reduction to E1, which was then shortened to 3 years. Other Marines got 6 months. Navy SEAL Adams Matthews received 1 year and a rank reduction to E5. Dodolph initially sentenced to 10 years, reduction in rank to E1, and a dishonorable discharge. Dodolph hired a civilian attorney, Tim Palator, an attorney for Pete Hegseth, and one of Trump's former criminal defense attorneys, to get his 10-year sentence overturned. Dodolph, an MMA fighter, had pleaded guilty and admitted to putting Melgar, a supposed teammate, in a rear naked chokehold to teach him a lesson, which is banned. It's a really effective hold, but it's been banned by most law enforcement agencies now, and that's because they've misused it. Because there's guys on steroids that are crushing the esophageal cartilage as opposed to getting the throat in here and applying gentle pressure. I've done videos on that were up on my original YouTube channel. Of course, that got wiped out, and there's still videos on this on my Patreon.com. Which, by the way, if you are interested in subscribing to, go to patreon.com/Jeffrey Prather at the $5.15 or the $25 level, where you'll get those daily training videos. Or if you just want curated news stories, jeffreyprather.locals.com as well. So Anyway, judge resentenced Adolph to 18 months, time served. An appellate panel affirmed the new sentence that left Adolph free to live his life with his 2 children, while Logan Melgar's family, including 2 little boys, must endure life without him. Could it get more insidious? Yes. In January 2019, while awaiting sentencing, Navy SEAL Adam Matthews attended a party in Las Vegas where he chatted up Logan Melgar's widow. Several witnesses said that Matthews, using a pseudonym and dressed in a Rambo costume, danced with the woman that her husbands helped kill, exchanged numbers, asked to go to her room. Matthews later claimed that after almost an hour, he finally realized who she was and tried to leave. Maybe, just maybe that's happened, but I call bullshit. This is Lori. So there are a lot of reunions. There is a lot of PTSD, including with the widows. This is not really unusual behavior inside the community as well. So I'm not sure. Well, I'll just say that. Eddie Gallagher, you probably remember his 2019 war crimes trial is a big reason why Pete Hegseth became defense secretary. He caught Trump's attention by championing Gallagher on Fox News. Special Operator First Class Josh Vriens, a Navy SEAL sniper who served under Gallagher in Team 7's Alpha Platoon, later wrote an essay describing Gallagher as a platoon leader who put his own men in unnecessary danger, shooting civilians, trying to get one or more of them injured or killed so they could make it a great deployment. Vriens wasn't alone. Before any of it went public, several of Gallagher's teammates had been complaining about him for months, calling him toxic. They took their complaints to the commanders. Nothing happened. No reprimand, no investigation, nothing on record. Navy SEAL leadership ignored the complaints of Alpha Platoon members about Gallagher's alleged war crimes until 7 of his teammates threatened to go to the media and top military brass outside. So there was a whole mutiny of a team. It was so bad. But this is something that's institutionally, and again, has long been known inside the community, that even at parties where wives and kids would be there, they would show kill films. That is, where they had killed or they were posing with dead bodies. Now, kill photos are not unusual inside the military. You just don't see them, but they're there. They are disapproved, but you can go into desks and see them sometimes on desks. And sometimes the bodies are desecrated because the fight has been too hard. If you've seen the Pacific, where you see the one guy tossing pebbles into the skull of the Japanese because it's been so terrible. You see him posing with them. You see him putting cigarettes in their mouth. All of that is against Geneva Convention, but it does happen. And it is not uncommon. We're talking something even more severe than that. She says, I watched the 2017 video of Gallagher with his teammates, calmly standing over a teenage ISIS prisoner as the boy lay on the ground. Gallagher was clearly the leader in the event. Then they shut off the camera. They turned the camera back on. The kid's dead. Well, again, that's an execution. That's murder. That's against the Geneva Convention. That is not war fighting. And that's really important to understand. And I was just in a meeting the other day, working some competitive intelligence consultancy, which is, I've been doing now intelligence for 30 years, military intelligence, law enforcement, federal law enforcement intelligence, defense intelligence agency intelligence, competitive intelligence in the corporate world. And so I'm always emphasizing ethics and morals. You can do it correctly. But this is circumstantial evidence of murder. So they claimed the boy's injuries were bad, and the SEALs were afraid that he would be further tortured by Iraqi forces, so he mercy killed him. That's another thing that happens on the battlefield, even with friendlies, sometimes with horrific injuries that most civilians cannot imagine. And sometimes it is asked for as well. Now, emergency trauma medicine has really come a long way. I know because I've actually gotten to attend PJ and 18 Delta Special Forces medics and PJ courses because Warrior School was running some of them. I'm not qualified, so I would get one of my friends, a very senior retired PJ, for example, Jim Sanchez, Super Sanch, to teach those classes. And it's what they can, the damage that they can save from is astounding now. So ultimately, Gallagher was convicted only of posing over the corpse. His sentence was a reduction in rank and pay and confinement for 4 months, which was time already served. So again, you keep saying this. You see, I want you to see that this is institutional. Gallagher admitted on a podcast that the plan all along was to kill the teenage boy. So again, there are 2 pillars of deadly force under the law: fear for life, yours or someone else's, means, ability, and intent to do so. It's got to be immediate, and then grievous bodily harm. And of course, also in the military, you have, kill the enemy, interdict the enemy under the rules of engagement. Typically, if the rules of engagement, proper military rules of engagement, if they surrender, you got to take them prisoner. Does that always happen? No. If it's a firefight, and you can actually see this in the beginning of Saving Private Ryan, as the Rangers come up, so the Germans start trying to surrender. And right after a firefight, trying to surrender is very difficult. There needs to be a buffer time period. But there's a difference between that happening because of the heat of the fight and the heat of the moment, and then purposeful murder. The next story is no less disturbing than Gallagher's. Around 2020, she worked with Matt Kubler, a former Army intelligence officer, Air Marshal, and at the time, Pennsylvania police officer, had been trying years to expose what he believes was a cover-up. Matt's former classmate, SEAL Team 4 Commander Job Price. Remember, I worked with SEAL Team 4 when I was on active duty with 7 Special Forces Group. Job Price died of a gunshot wound to the head on December 22nd, 2012, while on deployment in Afghanistan. His first weeks in command, Price discovered that a former SEAL Team 6 operator kept on his team instead of rotating out, which is weird. Right there. There's inside the community. Why is a 6 guy going to 4? Why is he a tier 1 guy going to a team tier 2? Well, he's been kicked out. That's why, likely. He's been stealing from cash reserves. This has happened. I've seen this happen in special operations. I've seen this happen in DEA. I've known people because I was paid sometimes on cover accounts. I was part of Operations Green Ice. You can look that up way back in the day. They don't do that anymore because of the danger for stealing money. But I've seen that both in special operations when I came in, and I've seen that in the 80s in special operations, in the 90s in DEA. In the days before his death, at the time I moves fast, Prince's commander, Tim Szymanski, visited and was overheard arguing loudly with him. Days later, Szymanski told Price his wife's job is crushing over there, doing great. Price confronted the thief. Price called his wife to say he had concerns. 2 days later, Job was dead. The scene was compromised from the start. NCIS ruled it a suicide, a finding that stripped his widow of life insurance benefits. And that is really key here. Job is the only Navy SEAL whose name isn't on the wall that honors others who were lost in battle by demons. Why is that? Neither Job's parents nor his sister believed he would take his own life. Didn't make any sense. And Matt has been on the show and talked about this in great detail. But Matt independently reviewed the evidence and had 2 other investigators all concluded that it was homicide, not suicide. Matt was introduced to Pete Hegseth and a Fox News host. He reviewed the evidence, and Matt and Hegseth said, yeah, this doesn't make sense. And he said that he would help. And then he withdrew his help after that. Now he is ghosting Matt. And so again, this is an institutional pattern you see go up from the teams, from the platoons to the teams, to the SEALs community, to the SEAL hierarchy, to Big Navy, to DOD, to Hegseth, and ultimately to the Commander-in-Chief, Trump. Yes, it is the Commander-in-Chief's responsibility for this. Um, uh, so the buck is supposed to stop with the commander, but evidently it does not. But what happened when a SEAL admiral tried to fix the community? Rear Admiral Milton Jamie Sands was fired in August 2025 as the head of Naval Special Warfare Command. Note that Hegseth is constantly firing department chiefs in the DoD. Now, certainly there's deadwood. Certainly there's a lot of politicians. There's generals and admirals that should not be in place. There's too many chiefs, not enough Indians, certainly. But there's a constant flow of anybody who disagrees with or stands up to Hegseth is gone. And in this case, it's pretty obvious. Sands was pushing for accountability and transparency, and they ousted him for it. According to Seth Hetna's article, Sands was cracking down on failures that were hurting the SEAL community. Instead of being lauded, they dismissed him. His contemporaries all sang his praises, but didn't save him. Nobody stood up. That's the problem in the SEAL community. Nobody stands up. Some retired ones or ex ones do. According to December 2025 CBS News article, from 2021 to 2024, a group of 18 Navy SEALs from SEAL Team 4 racially targeted a Black Navy SEAL. He's one of their brothers, yet it didn't stop them from harassing him with disgusting racist memes and other bullying tactics. So in the military, there's a lot of obscenity. There's a lot of racial obscenity. It is taken, for the most part, lightheartedly. But if it is constant, that is something else. And again, from what I know of inside the community, this was something else. This wasn't just saying something. This was a lot of doing things. But I won't go any further than that. But regardless, the Black SEAL lost his trident. It was about to be kicked out of the Navy when he smartly hired Tim Parlatore. The case shot right to the top, with Admiral Sands immediately addressing the command about the accusations. When they surfaced in March 2025, he was praised by Parlatore, but it wasn't enough to save his job. Why did Parlatore's law firm represent the Black SEAL, and for free, no less? And why, after being praised by his colleagues and after being recognized for addressing the Black SEAL's accusations, was Admiral Sands relieved of duty by Hegseth for reasons unknown? Admiral Sands had been trying to clean up the SEALs for years. In 2017, 3 current and former SEALs told CBS News that multiple members of the SEAL teams had tested positive for illegal drugs such as cocaine, marijuana, and ecstasy. Same problem had prompted the drafting of SEAL Ethos. Jamie Sands then serving as commander of Navy Special Warfare. I used to joke, I got piss tested so much I knew I wasn't on drugs. And I knew I didn't have AIDS, because you come back, you're deploying, or you come back from every tour, you're getting piss tested and sometimes poop tested. 5 operators were kicked out after using illegal narcotics. 5. That's half of a Special Forces ODA. So she says, I'm not insinuating that all the good SEALs are scared, little, or mild-mannered. The point is, it's time for them to join forces and destroy the corrupt among them, retired and active duty. It's the only way the trident will ever shine again. The only way to end needless agony inflicted on families. And this is true. They've gotten away for it with a long time, but it's finally coming out. It's making all the rounds on all the podcasts. Eric Deming's a former Navy SEAL. I've tried to get him on. I don't know why he won't come on. He appears on countless podcasts and discusses many things. Many of the good guys, past and present, have reached out to Eric with information, but haven't been ready to come forward publicly. That's the problem. They don't want to break the code of team. It is code over country. But do it for the families like mine who have suffered unimaginable pain because of them. That's why I'm going through this with you. Do it for future families so they don't have to suffer like this. So I'm doing it for the Gold Star families. And she says, I do believe most Navy SEALs try to uphold what the public believes them to be and honor their trident. Unfortunately, it's difficult to discern them from their evil, corrupt brothers who control and manipulate so much of the narrative. I know some of the good guys, but many do not attempt to purge the brotherhood. So they're passive. Since the 1970s, when Richard Marchenko stood up SEAL Team 6 and started recruiting pirates, rogues, and outlaws, and men who would have a hard time staying out of the legal trouble as civilians if they hadn't been in the community, Matthew Kubler wrote. And by the way, both the founder of Delta Force, somebody tell me, Beckwith, that's right. Beckwith was a real, he was a hard ass who started Delta Force, but he also like challenged junior officers at the Officers Club. So he's a real ass as well. But Marchenko is a convicted felon. And I have never met a SEAL that knew him that said anything good about him. And he's the founder of SEAL Team 6. I think when you're going to found a new unit like that, you got to be a real hard, callous guy. You got to be hard, first of all. You got to be really competent. Then you probably got to be very brash, kind of Patton-like, which Beckwith was, with Marchenko was. But Beckwith was not a convicted felon. Marchenko was. And so that starts the institutional legacy right there. Your founder is a convicted felon. And maybe somebody can elaborate on that in there. The corrupt drive away the good. That's really a good point there. Well said. Elegance, refined grace, or dignified. That's Lori's style. Yes, it is. The mission is research, and for the book, what a gig. Yeah, very cool. Bad money drives out good. The corrupt drive away good. Thankfully, not all the time. Yeah, good comments. Love to hear more of your comments here today, especially with this deep dive. Maybe Americans should stop being blind, foolish fanboys of the Navy SEALs and start paying attention to patterns. I don't think maybe. I think definitely. You know, I talk to other podcast liberty luminaries, and they're like, "Yeah, but the SEALs," you know. And I've talked to guys who faked it. Who were like, "Yeah, I'm outside President Trump's room, surrounded by SEALs." It's like that's the SEALs' job, or something. But we must hold them accountable for Stanley Pensy, John Chapman, Logan Melgar, Michael Murphy, Danny Dietz, Matthew Axelson, the alleged innocent victims of Chris Kyle and Eddie Gallagher, Job Price, Kyle Mullen, the Black SEAL, the innocent North Korean fishermen. The innocent North Korean fishermen were killed and their bodies mutilated on a failed SEAL Team 6 mission. I have not gotten into that because I'm not really up on that. We need to trust our warriors. To those young men who think they want to become a SEAL, think twice, do your research, be willing to walk away, even in the middle of training. It's not a disgrace to quit. It's a strength to follow your moral compass. And that's very, very true today. Don't let them or anyone take your integrity away. So I was recently, I was real sick earlier this year. So my wonderful wife had me going to all kinds of specialists. I had pulmonologists, cardiologists, rheumatologists, and one of them, son, was going into the military, was going to go Ranger, maybe Special Forces. And I said, well, I'm happy to talk to him. He already had a mentor, but he still might want to talk to me. But the last time I went in there, I said, hey, you know about NDA, National Defense Authorization Act, Section 219, where we're going to do a one-way flow of military assets by law to Israel. And then less known is Intelligence Authorization Act 662, which does the same thing for the intelligence community, one-way flow to Israel. We've never done that with any country. I did the podcast with Davis Yautz, the JAG attorney, retired colonel from the Air Force, who had talked about that. We talked about that in depth. And that's something to really consider and look at to see if you want to commit to doing that. And I think PJ Aaron Love was on and saying, hey, I disagree with you on that. I just want to serve. I know I wanted to serve too. I wanted to be like my dad, and that's a strong feeling. But and certainly there are bad missions, but this NDA 219 and IAA 622 changes everything. And that's no longer, you're really no longer taking an oath to the Constitution and to the commander in chief. You are taking an oath to one country besides America, which is treason. So if you haven't seen that show, I'd go back that section NDA section 219 is an oath to treason. It's an important cast as well. And there's lots of schools now. Warrior School was my big school from 2004 to 2014. Trained all the military branches, all the intelligence agencies in teams and units. At Camp Shelby, my combatives course was 600 guys a day with 10 assistant instructors, destroying a baseball field a day, doing that. And it was great. So you can learn all the cool skills without all the BS, because there's a lot of BS in there. I was really blessed because I started in SOCOM as a second lieutenant, left as a captain, and my 1 year in the conventional army in Korea in 2nd Brigade, 2nd Infantry Division, I just was spoiled by then by special operations and left active duty. But really, you can pursue those options without the military if you morally disagree with what's happened. The other way to look at that is, hey, I think I can change things better from the inside. And that's a legitimate point of view too. And I don't disparage that point of view at all as well. That's something to look at as well. And, let me know what you think about that in the comments. Also, remember to like, share, and subscribe here on Rumble and on X and on YouTube. JP Intel is my new channel on YouTube that I'm trying to build back up. I would most appreciate it if you do that. But it's an important issue because, as I've said many times, the republic has fallen, the empire is failing. The empire, so the republic was based upon, two different things. It was based on an agrarian-based society. That was Jefferson's ideal, and then commerce as well. Commerce has switched with the failure of the republic to the empire, which is failing now, which is the fall of the republic, replaced by the empire, which is failing dramatically by conquest. And conquest is made by the military. This was just like the Roman Empire, the elite soldiers, but you watch their elite degrade. So when you see the elite of the elite, and the SEAL community is part of that elite, they're not, in my opinion, the most elite, although that's what the civilians think because of the PR. They are probably the least elite of the community. But regardless, as you see that fail, as you see that corruption fail, that has what has ensured American exceptionalism. America is exceptional because of America's exceptional love of life and freedom. We love life and freedom so much because God says life and freedom are good that we are willing to fight, kill, and die for it. Who's willing to fight, kill, and die for it? Our military. What is the tip of the spear of our military? Special operations. SEALs are part of special operations community. So when you see that corruption there, you can see that the empire is crumbling from the inside as well. That's why this is entitled, Their Corruption Makes Them Incompetent, and their incompetence is becoming obvious and ubiquitous. And of course, all you gotta do is look at the FBI. The FBI doesn't do anything real anymore. It's all just cover up. And then you look at the CIA and the intelligence community, and I already talked about that at the beginning of the show, what a mess they are as well. So what happens is you approach a fork in the road on this and the other issues, and you take it. That is correct. Give me some of that. Yeah, I decided as a captain, I was approaching the time to either stay in for 20 or get out. And I was trying to decide whether to try and go for Delta or get out and go to DEA. And, as an officer, I wouldn't get to stay there. I was already injured quite well, been, broken leg on a parachute jump and neck problems already. And somebody, an ex-Delta guy said, we're still part of the Army. We always got to end up once a year cutting our hair, putting on our uniforms, and some bigwig. He said, go to a community that's all about that. So I chose DEA, which is the most dangerous area of law enforcement at that time, and not corrupted yet. And I'll talk about on another cast how my talks recently with Hector Barreyes, the special agent who investigated the torture and murder of Special Agent Kiki Camarena, former Marine, revealed that Kiki was not kidnapped, tortured, and murdered for the Buffalo Ranch marijuana seizures. That wasn't even his case. His CI flew a plane over it. It was actually captured, tortured, and murdered because he found out about Oliver North's Contras in Mexico and the CIA's doings in that. And the CIA agent, Felix Rodriguez, was there while Kiki was being tortured and murdered. So that then ties in completely to the beginning of my career when I was down in the Las Vegas Salient in Mocoron, Luz Ruiz, and the Contras were there. They had just come over the border, so I spent a lot of time on that border. First jumping with the Ranger Regiment, Smoking Joe Stringer was the commander then later on there with Special Forces. First as attached as a psychological operations officer to both, then later after I transferred over to 7th Group, back down there again. And so saw that whole thing go bad. And then, of course, I've told how I came into I cut my hair, put on my Class A's, Green Beret, go sit behind Colonel Fry, SOC South Commander, in Quarry Heights. I had been back in a tunnel for months working Contra Order of Battle. The new Sync South, back then when they had syncs, came in and said, are we going to end up before Congress like Ollie North has? And I sat behind the colonel and said, nope, we're not. Everything we're chartered to do, everything we're doing is legal. We're doing everything right. And that was that. But I saw right from then how wrong what Ollie North was doing. Of course, Fox built him up as a big hero, just like they built up the SEALs. But Oliver North really built the Clinton cartel of death through cash, cocaine, and Contras. And nobody talks about that. Because, again, we've seen Fox as just a mouthpiece. I haven't been on Fox in half a decade because I was outing Eric Holder's connections to Fast and Furious. And I am banned or shadow banned by a lot of folks as well. But anyway, that's the SEAL scandals versus Navy PR versus Gold Star truths. So I also wanted to get into why Christian demoralization of America feeds Islamification of America. Young American men turn to Islam because it has stone-set morals, unlike today's wacky Christian cults. So according to Muslim Brotherhood's own 1991 explanatory memorandum, open confrontation with America's military power was never an intended path. The strategy instead focused on long-term settlement and influence from within. Sounds a lot like China's unrestricted warfare plan. Researchers describe a multi-front effort aimed at expanding influence inside key institutions of society, military bases, schools, courts, neighborhoods, and communities. What researchers call a long game appears in the Muslim Brotherhood's internal documents, including the 1991 explanatory memorandum on the general strategic goal for the group in North America. The memorandum outlines a process of settlement and influence that critics have labeled civilization jihad. Jiza is the term, I believe. In Killeen, Texas, just outside the gates of Fort Hood, the Islamic community of Greater Killeen continues to operate as a primary civilian mosque, serving one of the largest military populations in the United States. In 2009, this same mosque was the regular place of prayer for Major Nidal Hassan, U.S. Army psychiatrist who murdered 13 American soldiers, jumped up on a table, screamed Allah Akbar as he shot them. He had erratic behavior for a long time, but everybody was afraid in the chain of command to say anything because it's all politically correct DEI bullshit. And guys, same rank as me, killed his own soldiers. And then Obama called it a workplace incident, which then meant that those who were shot and wounded and killed and their families did not get wartime benefits because Obama called it a workplace incident. They didn't get Purple Hearts either. That changed later, I believe. Maybe somebody can correct me on that in the chat. But that was all part of Obama's plan because Obama was likely recruited by the CIA in Pakistan when he went to Pakistan while he was a college student with his illegal Pakistani roommate who goes on break, who goes to Pakistan. So many classical and conservative Islamic jurist opinions hold that Muslims are generally prohibited from serving in non-Muslim infidel kafir armies, especially in combat roles. Active deliberate support of non-Muslims against Muslims is viewed by some scholars as a grave sin, can amount to apostasy, rida. However, this is not uniform or automatic ruling across all schools and contexts. Mainstream Sunni positions typically require clear rejection of Islamic principles or enmity towards the faith before declaring apostasy. Service is sometimes permitted by the scholars if it does not involve harming Muslims, participating in injustice, or preventing the free practice of Islam. So war on terror, Muslim countries, for better or worse. So then how are Muslims doing that? Well, what they're going to say is, what I think they're going to say is, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, is those are not true Muslims that I'm fighting. After the Fort Hood Islamic terror attack, mosque leaders issued the expected condemnations. Then it was business as usual. Islamic support operates inside the wire through the Army's Religious Support Office, 25th Street Chapel, currently under Captain Mohammed Suamaro. Historical Muslim chaplains at the post include Abdul Rashid Muhammad, the Army's first Muslim. In 2013, the Imam had been Dr. Ihab Abdelquab al-Fadi. It's a mouthful. His dissertation, Intellectual Security for the Youth in North America, is very discerning. He now leads the Imam Institute for Youth Intellectual Security. So note that phrase, youth intellectual security. And delivering sermons in class in Arabic, because if you don't know, Arabic, English, and Spanish, Allah only speaks Arabic. You got to learn Arabic, doesn't matter. It's not multicultural or multilingual. Rare has reportedly documented Al-Azhar's record, fatwa supporting jihad against Israel and Zionist settlers. Rare Foundation USA has for years highlighted the placement of mosques near U.S. military installations, the presence of foreign-trained imams. The combination is undeniable. Geographical adjacency to a major Army post, documented attendance by a Fort Hood shooter, ongoing conversion videos that explicitly reference base chaplains, an imam trained at an institution with hardline record of jihadist and supremacist rulings. And Tennessee State Representative Rick Womack sounded the alarm back in 2011 at a Tennessee Freedom Coalition event. He warned that devout Muslims in the U.S. military pose a grave danger because of their loyalty to Sharia, directly conflicts with the Constitution. His colleagues abandoned him. In a powerful interview still relevant today, Womack stated, "I don't trust one Muslim in our military because they're commanded to lie. And if they truly are devout Muslims and follow the Quran, then I feel threatened because they've commanded to kill me." Now, when I've had on Will Cummings, ODA 595, original whole soldier Green Beret, he said, hey, when we got together, the team got together, we read the Bible. When we worked with the locals who are all Muslim over there in the Mujahideen, they said, why are you here? We said, we're devout, faithful followers of our faith. And they understood that because they were followers of their faith. And I said, well, but was there a conflict? He goes, no, they were as Muslim as most Christians are Christian. That is Sunday Christians, kindergarten Christians, not very knowledgeable. So you got to take Womack's statement to a degree. But if a military man is converting to Islam, he's probably more than casual about it. It's not like somebody who was raised in it and just kind of goes along with it socially. We've talked about that with Masculine Man's Elliot Greenberg on there for Masculine Man Essentials. Use code JP10 for 10% off of that great deodorant. He said, I was raised Jewish, but it's kind of forced upon me. It was just social Judaism. I wasn't really involved in that. And so, that's very true. That makes sense. The same thing is true for Muslims as well. But, take a look at masculinemanessentials.com, made in America, aluminum free, smells great. Used it this morning. But anyway, Womack says, he cited the Department of Justice statistics from 2000 to 2010. There's a decade. There were 323 acts of domestic terrorism, of which 290, over 85%, were committed by Islamic extremists. That's metrics you cannot ignore. A massive spike from virtually nothing before 2000. Well, why is that? Well, again, this goes back to the G bringing them in. There would be no real support for Islam in America without the G support. And of course, it's through the military as well. Again, I view this like China's unrestricted warfare via their Thousand Talents Vector program. Through the doctrine of taqiyya and the Quran's commands against non-believers, the conflict is built in. And our leaders have ignored him. Now in 2026, we see the consequences of that. The same base where Nidal Hassan's jihad still echoes. So why are they ignoring it? Because they are in on it. They want it to happen. They are destroying nation-state boundaries. That's why everything goes. Satanism goes, Islam goes, Zionism goes, but not Christianity, not Catholicism, certainly not Jesus. So I've emphasized the Zionification of America and her military over the Islamification because it is more subtle and sinister, as illustrated by NDA Section 219, National Defense Authorization Act, Section 219, and Intelligence Authorization Act, Section 622, creating one-way transfer of all military and intelligence assets to Israel by law. But that does not mean that Islamification is not problematic as well. I excoriated the army for DEIing Nidal Hassan, an Islamic traitor of my same branch of service and rank. I was disgusted by it. I still am disgusted by it. You're supposed to protect and mentor and lead your men and women. But the G, the CIA, Obama are all responsible. They infilled them. So are the politically correct flag officers who look the other way with Nidal Hassan and all of them. They encouraged all of that as well. But so are we as Christians who have left straight, if not strict, morals behind, ignoring the sin of infanticide, DEI in the church, making Christ into a buddy pal as opposed to a fearless lion who permitted himself to be sacrificed as a lamb, but is returning in full lionhood. We all, but especially young men, seek leadership, challenges, and a code. Pop culture Christianity has replaced the code that gave Christian martyrs and knights fortitude in battle and death to be replaced by squishy, feel-good Christianity. So young alpha males go elsewhere. So again, it's up to us. That's why we have problems in the country today. If you want to join me in that, ChristChaplaincy.com is my chaplaincy. It's a spiritual warfare chaplaincy. It's quite different than church services. You can find it on Meta, on GoTo, where you can actually talk back and forth with us on Sunday. All of the services are recorded at ChristChaplaincy.com, and it goes live there as well. Army approves awards for victims of 2009 Fort Hood attack. Thank you. Gimme some of that. That is helpful. They finally did that. I wonder what year they did that. Maybe you can tell me that, because I thought that came about finally. But finally, there is a distinct difference between supporting warmongers as opposed to supporting war fighters. And I think people don't understand that today. War fighters want to win and end the war. Warmongers want endless war. There is a huge difference. And the latest statements by Zelensky mirror the Hegseth statements and the Trump statements. And he says, Ukraine isn't willing to surrender territory just for the sake of saving another 500,000 Russian soldiers from being turned into fertilizer for our fields. Now, what kind of leader talks like that? So one of the things I always say is have a healthy respect for your enemy. Fight him with all your vigor, but respect him. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky broadcast a 20-minute address to the nation. Of course, he's never fought anybody. He was a TV star tranny. And while much of the speech focused on the determination of the Ukrainian people, the president quipped that the love and spirit of Ukraine makes the nation 100 times stronger than Russia. Really? You think little Ukraine is 100 times stronger than Russia? Where would Ukraine be without American proxy military and intelligence? And he talks about while the Ukrainian army turns the reinforcement of the Russian army into fertilizer for our fields. So is that a way to talk about the dead, even the enemy dead? Is that a proper way? February 6, 2015. Thank you. Give me some of that. But give me your comments. You think it's okay to talk like that? I've never talked like that. I've never belittled. When you say terms like nigger, spick, chink, any of those kind of terms, you are demeaning the person, the human being, and turning them into something else to make it easier for you then to abuse them, enslave them, torture them, or kill them. And this is rhetoric you hear all the time, especially right now from Israel and the Zionists, is the Palestinians aren't human beings. They're Amalek. They are monsters. They're subhumans. They're goyim. This down through history, demeaning people, making them less than human is always a way to then make it easier to dismantle, destroy, and inter them. And so something I never do. I've always had a healthy respect for all of my enemies. So Zelensky's reference to 500,000 more Russians due to the face the meat grinder, if Kremlin continues, is based upon Washington-based Center for Strategic International Studies, Washington-based Strategic Center. Gus, I wonder who they're going to favor. Of those 2 million, the lion's share at 1.4 million are reckoned to be Russian combat casualties. Of those, around 400,000 back in July were said to be Russian war dead, with the remaining million or so wounded and missing. As stated, the scale of casualties makes the Russian invasion of Ukraine the largest conflict for any world power since the Second World War. And Russian casualties are so great, they are higher than the combined Russian casualties for every post-1945 conflict, soaring well beyond even wars like Afghanistan. Fair enough. So they're saying maybe 1 million, 1.4 million are reckoned to be Russian combat casualties. Okay. So if you study history, the way Russia fights, Russia lost like 45 million in World War II. That's why they will never countenance Nazis, ever. They will never go along with Ukrainians, their Azov Nazi battalions, ever. Everybody has been affected by that. It's also unnecessarily provocative. Yes, that's very true. It's disrespectful, unnecessarily provocative. It's not how a real leader talks. It is how a TV tranny talks, by the way. But if you want to talk like that and say, okay, so you've got 1 million casualties, well, I got news for you. 1 million casualties, if it's even true, which I don't believe it is, to the Russians is nothing. Nothing. After 45 million and fighting Hitler and everybody touched by German Nazism, they will never go along with Nazism again, which is what they see the Ukrainian invasion of the Russian-speaking, Russian-thinking provinces, Donetsk primarily, as, and the biological weapons thereof. But if you're talking about, hey, you've ground them down at 1 million casualties, even if true, you simply don't know what you're talking about. The Russians are just getting started. And I challenge anybody to, if I could get Colonel McCullough back on, I'd love to, and I think he'd agree with me. I challenge any serious military analyst to say other than that as well. Very important. But then you hear the same kind of talk from Hegseth. We're going to destroy them. We're going to wipe them out. All Old Testament stuff. Because, of course, he is a Protestant evangelical Zionist. Well, again, Yeshua spent so much time and effort fulfilling some 400 prophecies and making very overt and blatant comparisons to the Old Testament to show that they were all fulfilled, and said, I come to fulfill the law. And he did fulfill the law and make a new covenant. So all the time when you quote all this Old Testament stuff, it's no longer relevant if you are a Christian. And if you are quoting it and you're an American Christian Zionist, you're not really a Christian, because Joshua said, yeah, took care of all that. Now here's the new covenant. Now here's the new commandments. And here's how, and he even showed how you're going to conquer, or you're going to co-opt the Roman Empire. If someone asks you to go 1 mile, go 2. Well, what's that? That is, there was a Roman edict that when you're carrying all your stuff on your spear pole, on your lance pole, because that takes the weight off of you, and you're marching all day, because when you march all day and then at night you got to build fortifications, you got to build a ditch, you got to put up a stockade, and they're expert at it because they were expert builders as well as fighters. You could get some relief along the way. You could say, hey, come 1 mile and carry my stuff. Give me a break. They even do kind of a schmarmy version of this in Chosen, but it's true. That could do that. And Yeshua addresses this. He goes, hey, if somebody asks you to go 1 mile, go 2. Go further. That's co-option. And the Chosen segment shows at the end, the Roman soldier just doesn't know what to make of this, and he has grudging respect. This is what happens in the Colosseum when the martyrs bravely and happily go to their deaths, and the Romans who are watching start to go, they're not afraid. These Christians are studs. What's this about? What is this Christianity about? And that becomes actioned in St. Martin, who is raised by a Roman cavalryman. He becomes Christian because he's playing with the Christian slave children in his household, and he is required to join the legions, but he won't fight. And they say, well, we're going to court-martial you for cowardice. He goes, no, I'll go into battle. I'm just not going to fight. Very much, he's like an early Desmond Doss. And doing all of this begins to destabilize the empire. It is co-opted, not conquered, by Christians through martyr's blood. Charlie Kirk doing that, which doesn't mean you can't fight when you're supposed to, because the Crusaders fought. And I've tried to get Raymond Abraham on. He responded to me on X, and then I went through the process, and that stopped. I don't know why that stopped. I think there's 2 reasons why people come on. Like Joe Kent won't come back on, even though I'm a big Kent supporter. I think people get busy. I think people maybe look at lies about me, or I think people also don't want certain questions to be asked. That may be with Joe, since I have a similar background to his. Or it may be that someone's told him, hey, watch out for that guy. I don't know. But this is the way Zelensky presents himself. This is the way Hegseth presents himself. This is the way Trump presents himself. We're going to bomb the hell out of him. We're going to 1-2 punch him. This is not mature leadership command talk at all. It's not how it's done. How is it done? It's done like this. This is on D-Day. This is Eisenhower's order of the day. Soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force, you are about to embark upon the great crusade. Yes, he uses the word crusade, towards which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hope and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. In company with our brave allies and brothers in arms on other fronts, you will bring about destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and security for ourselves in a free world. Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well trained, well equipped, and battle hardened. He will fight savagely. But this is the year 1944. Much has happened since the Nazi triumphs of 1940 and 41. The United Nations have inflicted upon the Germans great defeats in open battle, man to man. Our air offensive has seriously reduced their strength in air and their capacity to wage war on the ground. Our home fronts have given us as much overwhelming superiority in weapons and munitions of war, and placed at our disposal great reserves of trained fighting men. The tide has turned. The free men of the world are marching together today to victory. I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, skill in battle. We will accept nothing less than full victory. Good luck, and let us beseech the blessing of Almighty God upon this great and noble undertaking. Get tears in my eyes reading that. So it starts off with hopes and prayers. It says, brothers in arms, talks about the destruction of the German war machine, not the destruction of the German people, not the fertilization of the soil with bodies. Ends Nazi tyranny. Task not going to be easy, but man to man. It's not man to Goyim or Amalek, man to man. He recognizes their humanity there, and full confidence in your devotion to duty and skill in battle. Now that is the way a leader speaks. Our leaders speak like WWF announcers and TV personalities, which gives me no pleasure to say this at all. I am an American. I'm an American patriot. I'm an American veteran. I'm not a dual citizen of anywhere, but that is true. Give me some of that inspirational leadership. So that is very important to understand and remember today. And that's what I wanted to cover. I'm sorry John Cullen could not make it today, but I really want to do that deep dive because, again, I want in America for my girls, my children, and my God family's children to grow up in. So I've got skin in the game. To have that make this country exceptional again, we have to be good. To be good, we have to be godly. To be godly, we have to be moral. And that means CIA's got to be moral. And that means SEAL's got to be moral. That means everybody's got to return to a morality. And that is essential to what must be done here. So I thank you for tuning in today. Please remember to support all the sponsors to keep the Prather Point free, nessashemp.com. My shoulder was aching the other day because the adhesive on my signal patch was coming off. So I put on Ness's oil on my shoulder. Boom, almost immediately it was better. My wife used it the other day too. My girls use it. nessashemp.com /hashtag the Prather Point. The Prather Point 10 for 10% off works really well as well. And don't forget to use teamamericcoffee.com or staybrewedcoffee.com It is the best, and their family's the best. And again, when I'm with my sponsors, they are all good people, and this is also a way for you to neighbor up nationally. These are all contacts with good folks with good stuff that you should get to know, which is why I have them on the show so you can get to know them. And that also helps them promote their brand as well. Thank you, sir, for the lawyer discussion. Will she come on your show? Yeah, she'll come on. That's what I said at the beginning. Is she? I asked her to come on when this came out. I asked her to come on when the first part came out, and she said I'd like to because she's very appreciative of my efforts. But she said my agent has told me not to do any more interviews until the movie comes out. So Ron Howard is making Alone at Dawn, and so I'm going to respect that. But I'm also still going to stand by her, but stand by her efforts. And any Gold Star sister, mother, father that asks anything of me, I will always do my best for them. We owe them that. And so that's why I took the time to go through that Substack in detail. It's also, I think, the way to save the SEAL community. They think they're saving it by hiding it, but that's just increasing an infection, and that won't work. It's got to be like curative base hypochlorous acid spray. You got to get rid of the infection. It's making it bad for everybody else. Give me some of that. It says okay, but I will have her back on. But I've actually enjoyed doing a deep dive with you, and I hope that you will share this show, like, share, and subscribe, and follow me on X as well. There's a lot of stuff I post on X that I don't post anywhere else. There was a great thing about fathers and family realizing that how their father had been there for them and broke. There's a black father, black family breaking intergenerational chains of fatherlessness, which results in father wounds, which is really touching. I showed it to my wife. She started crying. I started crying. Really cool stuff there on my X feed. And then there's some unique stuff sometimes on my Meta, on my Facebook stuff as well. And of course, Rumble is where I'm mainly at, but I'm also trying now to get my YouTube channel going back up, making an effort there. So please go to JP Intel, where I've kind of stealthy came back on there. So remember, you with the most doing the least, man up. When a warrior shows, innocent smile, but guilty slink. Evil is powerless, faced by fearlessness. Fearlessness begets courage. Courage begets freedom, not to do what you like, but to do what you should, to fulfill your nature, not deny it. Esteem is earned, not bought. Define yourself by your duty. Don't fit in, stand up. Boys are born, men are trained. Be your enemy's worst and your friend's best. Be as gentle with family as you are fierce with foes. Don't be fearful, but fear less. Be feared, but respected. Be strong, but compassionate. Be accurate, but tolerant. But above all, be dangerous.